Welcome to a platform where we debate on the top stories of the NBA, NFL, Major League Baseball, and other leagues with the best in the world of sports. You'll also get interviews with many athletes and media talents at several basketball events, including the WNBA and college basketball. My name is Rafiq Lewison, and this is Nothing But That Sports Talk.
Smith in trouble in the paint. Williams, for the two, goes by. Thomas and Bonner each with 17 to lead the Sun. Smith left open, that's dangerous because she can do that.
And again, another example of cuts, right?
How about this display of basketball between these rivals? Ionescu, the leader, is good! It seems like defenders always still contest in these spots. New York runs away. Young can't hit the three. Game 2 belongs to the New York Liberty.
We expect nothing less of another matchup with the Aces of Liberty as I welcome to this episode of Nothing But That Sports Talk. Rafiq Lewis, I'm alongside Kevin Lewis from the 9450 Basketball Network. Welcome aboard.
Hey, what up? What it is? What's popping? How you doing, Rafiq, man?
Yeah, I'm doing great. I mean, enjoying this WNBA playoffs. I mean, geez, there's a lot of action going on in the WNBA, and there's also a lot of like homophobia and racism in the WNBA featuring a certain USA Today journalist, but we'll get more to that later. But I want to get your thoughts on how the New York Liberty have played throughout this year's playoffs, including winning the first 2 games against the Aces in their little revenge tour from last year's finals.
Yeah, well, I think from the first thing that I want to talk about regarding the New York Liberty is just the maturation that you've seen from the first year that they've been together to now. And not only that, like you got to give credit to Jonathan Cole, the GM and president, for bringing in more pieces from an overseas standpoint in Leonie Phoebish, the rookie, and Kennedy Burke. I think that the New York Liberty, they're obviously on a mission, right? And I think that they've used last year as a catalyst for this year in order to just have tunnel vision in making sure that, listen, nobody is going to get in our way of getting this championship. We are locked in. We're focused. Let's do it right now. So it's more credit to the New York Liberty, and a lot of credit goes to, the entire organization and Coach Sandy Brondello for getting them into the position that they're in now. We're seeing them up 2-0 against the defending WNBA champion, who are on a quest for a three-peat, as we've always talked about. So it's just been great to see, and it's been great to cover.
Exactly. And even though the Aces have actually showed a lot more toughness in these last 2 games, Liberty always found a way to respond. I mean, especially when obviously Alaysia Clark tied the game and then Sabrina Ionescu responded. But obviously what really changed everything was an out-of-bounds play by Kelsey Plum.
Yeah, so with that, Kelsey Plum obviously had the great, game 1. I think that from a an adjustment standpoint, right? The New York Liberty did an incredible job on her in game 2, but then you saw Jackie Young, get off in game 2, and Chelsea Gray as well. But what's more important is the consistency of the resilience that you've seen with the New York Liberty. You've seen that they can be interchangeable. So Kennedy Burke can come in the first half and play minutes, right? And may not be as well as a Nayara Sabally, right? And then you turn around in the second game, Kennedy Burke, only plays the first half, right? So what's been important is I think that from a continuity standpoint and a synergy standpoint, the New York Liberty just has what it takes to move it forward. And they are incredibly focused. We saw that in game 2. Breanna Stewart didn't have the 30-point game that she had in game 1. She only had 13, if I'm not mistaken. But it was Sabrina Ionescu with 24 and 11 in the fourth quarter, right? So those are the things, and from a consistency standpoint, that you can trust the New York Liberty on this year as opposed to last year, where it was almost like, oh, give Breanna Stewart the ball and get out of the way. But now this year is give Brianna Stewart the ball, get out the way, or give Sabrina Ionescu the ball, get out the way, or give Jonquel Jones the ball, get out the way, or give Benijah Laney Hamilton the ball, get out the way. Like it's a never ending, like it's pick your poison, right? Pick your poison. And the New York Liberty, to their credit, has done an incredible job in doing it.
Exactly. And you know what? When you listen to the post-game press conference, it was said by the players and coaches something about how the Liberty are taking advantage of scoring the inside, leaving to the Aces playing passive defense. And Becky Hammond rant about that in the press conference. She said they did not play well. I mean, and the Aces were literally passive. And I'm going to get off my and this is me being non-biased about it, but if the Aces are going to bounce back, they have to play more defense on the inside because they gave up way too many layups by Brianna Stewart and Jonquel Jones and Sabali. And they were getting after it big time.
Yeah, 16 uncontested layups in game one and 44 to 24 paint points for the Liberty in game two. That's the biggest factor. It's not even an argument, right, Rafiq? So that's the advantage that you've seen the New York Liberty take advantage of. And I think that from a counter standpoint, now Coach Becky Hammond has to trust more bodies, right? Putting more bodies on the floor. Maybe we see a Megan Gustafson get minutes. Maybe we see a Queen Egbo come in and get minutes. Maybe we see a Kate Martin come in and get minutes. Like you have to find at least 7 to 10 minutes from those bodies in particular to disrupt what the New York Liberty has done in the first two games so that you can see from a pace standpoint how the Aces can be able to dictate the pace. In the first two games, I feel like the Liberty has dictated their pace strongly, maybe not in game two compared to a game one, but in game two, we saw that they can be a chameleon and they can match whatever pace is being brought in front of them, right? You saw that the Aces were running them, trying to keep them from establishing a half-court defensive setting, right? But you saw that the Liberty did the same thing. They were able to push it in transition on makes or misses. You were able to see Sabrina Ionescu get some transition threes out of that. The same with Brianna Stewart. Maybe they didn't fall the way that you wanted to, but it just proved the fact that the Liberty can go tat for tat the way you want them to. They can dictate the game even if you think you're dictating the game.
Exactly. It's all about figuring each other out, offensive, defensive weaknesses, like literally on the spot. And Becky Hammond alluded to when she was renting to her players after the loss of game two, like she's literally toughening them up.
Yeah, absolutely. So the biggest thing that I take away from the first two games in Brooklyn is sometimes you saw the Aces kind of like confused, right? They don't know whether to switch. They don't know whether to stay home. Like it was so much read and react on the Liberty side that from a defensive standpoint, the Aces just didn't know what to do. And then it got to a point where the Aces was just like, you know what? Let's throw all our cards on the table. We're switching everything. And that's where the disadvantages came with Leonie Phoebish being on a Kelsey Plum, right? Or a Brianna Stewart being on a Chelsea Gray, and she's just taking advantage from a height standpoint because let's face it now, Kelsey Plum is a capable defender. Chelsea Gray, both capable defenders, right? I think more Chelsea Gray than Kelsey Plum in my opinion. But from Chelsea Gray's standpoint, she can go strength for strength. Yeah, she may not be 6'3", 6'4", but she is 5'11", 6 foot, 6'1", if you will. Like she's very, very strong in the paint. You're not just going to bully her. So I think it's just those type of cross matches that you saw in the first two games that really dictated the games. And you have to figure out a way if you're the Las Vegas Aces to counter all of those. When the Aces countered in game two, the Liberty countered right back. From that standpoint, I think the Aces just didn't know how to counter the counter, and they just put their hands up at that point. They were Haley Van Lith in the game versus Iowa in the tournament this year, where she just had her hand up. She's like, man, I don't know what else to do. So if you can figure out a way, if you are the Las Vegas Aces and you can figure out a way to continue to keep that game close, and also 7 missed free throws,
Yeah,
they could have won that game.
Those missed free throws hurt a lot, and I already mentioned
Hurt a lot.
The Hayes missed free throw that would have tied the game up. If they had tied the game up on that free throw, and Sabrina Lesco didn't make the free throws that put them up by 4, it would have been a totally different conversation. It probably would have,
totally different conversation. Even if you miss, so they went 12 for 19 at the free throw line.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you miss 2, even if you go 17 for 19, even if you go 17 for 19, you still win that game by 1 point. You still win the game by 1 point. Still. But again, it's everything under the spectrum of needing to get focused. And I think in game 3, you will see a more polished, more focused Las Vegas Aces team. But the problem that you stand with that is what type of New York Liberty team you're going to see in counter to what the focus is for the Las Vegas Aces.
Yeah, and speaking of the New York Liberties, the Rio Nescu mentioned in the post-game press conference that even though when the reporters asked her about the beat up 2-0, she said, we didn't win anything yet. The job's not done. That's how you know she's going to be focused on trying to wrap it up this, like literally game 3, which I prefer, or game 4 or 5.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. She said, what are 2 games? What are 2 games? We haven't won anything. We haven't won anything. So what are 2 games? We just did what we were supposed to do in Brooklyn. We kept them from stealing one. So now the goal is we need to go steal one on their home court. We don't want to come back to Brooklyn. They don't want to come back for game 5. And the Liberty knows that. They don't want to come back for game 5. So the goal is to take a game in Vegas and just go ahead and get it over with. And I think that this New York Liberty team is incredibly focused in doing so. So it's going to be a very interesting thing to see come Friday.
Yeah. Now on to a series where we know for sure we'll have a game 4 this Sunday, and that's the Connecticut Sun and the Minnesota Lynx. And talk about physicality in the first 2 games in Minnesota, because the Sun got the best of them in game 1, courtesy of Alyssa Thomas heroics, but game 2, clearly Minnesota wasn't messing around. So what can you take from that series with the Minnesota Lynx and the Connecticut Sun?
Yeah, I take away defense, and it's the first to 70, literally. First to 70 points wins the game, in my opinion. I think that from a defensive standpoint, they're just too good. Both teams, I might add. But what's important is going to be the shooting for the Connecticut Sun. They are going to be home for 2 games. They have to make sure that their efficiency from the 3-point line is going to be dire, and Marina Mabry is the starting point for that. That's the reason why they brought her in mid-season. That's the reason why she was able to close game 1 out the way that she did, even though Alyssa Thomas did hit the kind of like the me personally, I think Marina Mabry hit the dagger with that shot clock going down, and she rainbowed that 3 for them to go up 4. Yeah, like she rainbowed that 3 to go up 4, right? And then Alyssa Thomas obviously did the push shot from the free throw line for them to go up 3 in that game to literally close it out. But it's going to be Marina Mabry, and it's going to be Dejanay Carrington, and there's going to be DeWanna Bonner, who is going to have to make threes. Ty Harris is coming back from that ankle injury, so she's still got to get her feet up under her. We know that Veronica Burton isn't the most capable 3-point shooter. She isn't the most capable scorer, but they are going to need her defensive presence versus Courtney Williams. So we know from that standpoint, the 3-point shooting is important. And I think Marina, DeWanna, and Dejanay Carrington has to be the catalyst for that. So we will see what comes about in that series. But more importantly, the Connecticut Sun has to force the Minnesota Lynx to play one-on-one basketball. They are mortal. They are mortal if they play one-on-one basketball. They're superhuman if they allow the ball to pop, move the ball around like they've been doing all season long. Hold on one second, Rafiq. I'm sorry. Can
Yeah. Now, to left off, to left off. This should be a pretty interesting series. I mean, the Minnesota Lynx and Sun. I mean, plus it's all about slowing down on Bridget Carton. We can't forget about that.
Yeah, and you know what's funny, Rafiq? Because like I said, Minnesota loves for the ball to pop. They love ball movement. They embrace the idea of getting your defense to move so that they can have the advantage in shooting. Because you have Kayla McBride, you have Bridget Carlton, like they have been incredible beyond the arc this year, and more importantly, Courtney Williams have been incredible not only with her mid-range game but also beyond the arc as well. So when the ball is moving and not being stagnant and not sticking and not relying on one-on-one Nafisa Collier to try to find you a bucket, like they have been superb. But the Connecticut Sun, what they've been able to do is they've been able to force them to play one-on-one basketball. And that's not what Minnesota wants to do. So when you mention a Bridget Carlton, right, it's going to be the 50-50 balls for me that tells the tale of game 3. So we've seen in game 2 where Connecticut will get a hand on the ball and the ball is like be on the floor, but it'll roll to a Minnesota Lynx player and they have an open shot. We've seen it with Bridget Carlton. We've seen it with Alana Smith. Like we've seen it in some cases with Courtney Williams and Maisha Hines Allen as well. So like that's going to be the most important thing when it comes to the Connecticut Sun trying to be successful against the Minnesota Lynx. But also we go back to defense, right? When you have each team being held to literally under 40% shooting, like it's almost like you have to get the team to shoot at like 45%, 45 to 48% shooting in order to win the game. Because if you shoot under that, it's going to be a bad night for you. So it depends on which team is able to hold the other team to sub 45% shooting, even sub 40% shooting. So that's going to be another thing that I'm going to look for as well on Friday.
Exactly. It should be a very fun series. He's like I said, but based on everything going so far, which WNBA final matchup you think is going to happen in the end?
I think in the end, it might be a situation where we see New York and Connecticut. I think that Connecticut in this particular moment is saying, listen, we got to put all of our chips on the table. I don't know what we're going to look like after this year. I know that we acquired Marina Mabry, but we have some free agents here. We got the Golden State Valkyries coming, so we don't know which 6 is going to be able to be kept. Like, we got free agency coming. Like, we need to go ahead and win this championship right now. We've been in a window since 2019 where we've either been in the semifinals or the finals. We need to win right now. So, with that being said, I think that the Connecticut Sun could potentially win it because of that experience. I think that the New York Liberty is just honed in. They are just incredibly focused, incredibly just lasered in. So I really think that we may see a New York Liberty Connecticut Sun final.
Yeah, like we did the semifinals last year, and this should be very interesting. And you know what? Since you talk about the Golden State Valkyrie, let's just pick up on the fact that they have an expensive draft coming this December, where they get to pick one player from all the first 12 teams in the WNBA. So, yeah, what you think about the way the draft is structured for the Golden State Valkyrie expansion?
So from that standpoint, like it's definitely incredible to see first a new franchise coming in and they will be playing in the next year. So that's dope, right? From a structure standpoint, like I'm a little indifferent to be honest with you. I don't know because I haven't been too involved in expansion drafts like I've wanted to. I remember the expansion draft for the Detroit Shock. I remember the expansion draft for the Sacramento Monarchs when they came in. But with those, it was way different back in like 2003 compared to now, right? So the structure is a little bit different. It's a bit unique, to say the least. I know that each team is prompted to protect 6 players. But within those 6 players, you got a lot of those players that are going to be free agents. This is going to be one of the biggest free agencies that we've seen in a while, right? There are a couple players within this free agent draft that maybe not the biggest name, but they're going to be great complementary pieces wherever they decide to sign. So this is going to be very, very interesting. We do have situations where we've seen a Natasha Howard say, listen, I'm not coming back to Dallas. More peace, more blessings to that organization. We've seen someone like a Kelsey Mitchell say, listen, I've never been a free agent. I'm going to explore free agency. I don't know if I want to come back to Indiana. Maybe I do, but I don't know if I will. So, it's those situations, right? And then, with the whole situation in Chicago, with the untimely firing of Teresa Weatherspoon, in my opinion, there's so many different factors, so many different layers that you're looking at. I just don't know how things are going to transpire. But with this particular structure, again, I'm a little indifferent about it. However, I think that from a Valkyrie standpoint, they're going to have a great expansion draft. I like the fact that it's going to be televised because that's going to be something that everybody is going to be watching during that season. We all know that that's bowl season, December 6th, if I'm not mistaken. So we're in for a really, really good time, if you will, when it comes to this expansion draft. And I can't wait to see what comes out of it.
Yeah, even when WNBA is over, it's never over when it comes to the conversations, because we already just went over the Golden State Valkyries expansion draft. You got the unrivaled league that's starting in Miami, Florida. And literally so far, I believe 23 teams already guaranteed to join. So it's good. So it should be fun in the future women's basketball. Of course, you got women's college basketball starting up, and can't wait to see what's going to go down. Paige Beckers will be playing her final season in college. Juju Watkins will be playing. We will be carrying USC Indy in the Big Ten. Now that not in the Pac-12 anymore, and obviously the Pac-12 they added new teams, but they're not going to debut until 2026. So the future is bright in women's basketball. Go out to the pros.
Absolutely, yeah.
But the one non-bright part about it was everything that happened after Game 2 of the Indiana Fever, the Connecticut Sun, and the disrespect to Caitlin Clark and with the fan that got escorted off the court by security, and then of course the USA Today journalist that interviewed Caitlin Clark asking questions that I believe a lot of people didn't agree with. So what do you think about that narrative when it comes to racism and homophobia in the WNBA?
Well, I had recently listened to Good Game with Sarah Spain, and she actually had Christine Brennan on, and it almost seems as if Christine Brennan, because of this tenure that she has in women's sports, I think it was almost I think it was more naive to have Sarah ask certain questions and her not understand those questions. It was almost like kind of like turning a blind eye to what the actual situation is within today's landscape of women's sports and women's basketball in particular. Now, I've always said that I am a person who is incredibly mindful of how things transpire within the WNBA because I am a man. More importantly, I am a Black man. And I feel like a lot of us Black men don't necessarily understand the plight of the Black woman. So sometimes we can be incredibly ignorant in how we approach certain things when certain things are brought to us. In this Christine Brennan situation, for us, we have to be mindful again on how we approach, how we talk about these things. So in my opinion, professionally, I think that Christine Brennan, again, was naive, and I think she was just continuing to turn a blind eye and just being purposely obtuse in understanding what Sarah Spain was trying to convey in that conversation, which in my opinion, I think was a conversation that needed to be had. It needed to be expressed in that particular manner. So for her, there is a bottom line agenda And it is a book that she is writing, and it's a book that does not involve Caitlin Clark. I want everybody to know that this book does not necessarily involve Caitlin Clark, from where she's just following Caitlin Clark all around and she's writing her book based off of that. No, it's based off of other people's perspectives. She's using other people to interview. She's using other people to convey and help draw that story of the phenomenon we know as Caitlin Clark. So to give people perspective and to give people more context, that's what it's about. And the way that she's going about it does not sit well with a lot of people, more in particular, the people that she is, for lack of better terms, harming from a reputation standpoint. So that's why people are calling her out on that. And it's not a bad thing for people to do that. They have the opinion, they have the autonomy to do that, just like Christine Brennan has the opinion and the autonomy to write this book. So we have to look at the perspective of what people are. And if you look at it from my perspective, I think that, again, it's being obtuse to the actual problem that we've always had with being Black in America. And it just goes to show what type of privilege certain people have in this actual space, but more importantly, just in society, period. What has this country been built off? So in that perspective, I think that, again, we have to be very, very mindful on how we convey certain narratives. We know that the media pushes a certain narrative in a certain way. It is up to us to try to detain that type of narrative that is being pushed. And it's also up to us to make sure that we raise our hand and call out the certain things within the media that is being pushed, and prevent that for future people that want to be in this space moving forward.
Exactly. And to piggyback off you were saying, like, the opinions of the people that listen to the interviews matter, especially when we're journalists interviewing players in the league where there's a lot of LGBT players and a lot of Black people playing in this league. So we got to be careful how we conduct ourselves when we ask these questions, or just don't say anything about homophobia at all. I mean, if you was on the Zoom calls a lot, as long as you've not been talking sports, from Christina Williams, who actually mentioned listen to the last 5 or 6 minutes of Sarah Spain's podcast, because those last 6 minutes are important for us journalists to get educated on the type of journalistic skills that the USA Today journalists pointed out.
Yeah. So, and you're absolutely right. Like, again, when it comes to journalism, right, you want to get the hard facts, right? And you're more than likely going to do anything and everything possible to try to get that hard fact. But at the same time, we're living in 2024. This isn't 1994. Things have changed drastically. The notion of putting social in front of media has changed, because now you're not being looked under a microscope by a microcosm of folks. You're being looked under a microscope of a plethora of different folks within ideologies, within societies, and within different opinions that people have. It's not just you and I having an opinion on one thing. It's you, it's myself, it's the next person, it's the next person, it's the next person that now has that opinion. So regular Joe Schmo can have an opinion on somebody as professional as somebody as a LeBron James, as somebody as high profile as a Asia Wilson, as somebody as high profile as a Caitlin Clark, as an Angel Reese, as a Nafisa Collier, and these are type of things that we need to be careful on how we address, because the sensitivity factor has increased from a perspective of now everybody sees it. It's not just a small subset of folks that are seeing it and reporting it to the masses. Now they see it firsthand. It's not someone seeing it first and then it being filtered, right? And then it be presented to the masses. No, when it happens, everybody is seeing it. So you cannot filter it at this point. It is what it is at this point, and everybody has an opinion. and everybody is entitled to them.
Yes, we're all entitled to our opinion, especially when we're talking to players. Like, at the end of the day, no matter what clothes you have outside the court, once you're in that press conference room or any space when you're interviewing the players, you're a journalist interviewing the player. And we have to be mindful about that. That's it.
Absolutely.
And now for this episode, Nothing But That Sports Talk. Thank you for stopping by, Kevin Lewis. I appreciate you coming on to give insights on the WNBA, and hope to have you back at least a few more episodes before the season comes to an end.
Absolutely. And Rafiq, I do want to thank you, for all of your coverage, for everything you're doing for New York media, for New York sports, man. Continue to do what you do. Really, really appreciate you. Keep up the good work.
Yeah, I'm trying, man. I mean, it's kind of tough. I mean, yeah, all we can do is keep trying.
Absolutely.
Yeah. For Kevin Lewis, Rafiq Lewis on. We'll see you next time and enjoy the rest of the WNBA.